Hello everyone. So I just wanted to touch base before this video to let you know that this is still from the previous stream, which means the camera is going to be fluffy and weird. I'm currently working with Logitech to get the issue fixed, but yesterday they tried to tell me it was a lighting issue. Then I was like, no, we've done it in perfect lighting. Right now it seems to be working, and it seems to keep going in and out. They're planning on replacing it, so hopefully we'll have that fixed and won't have to keep dealing with this intermittently. Also figured out what the sound issue was, so I apologize if this sounds tinny or distant. I tried to fix as much I could in post. If you are a person who is skilled in audio or things like that, and you have some time you wouldn't mind putting towards a project, I guess let us know, because it would be nice to have some help with this stuff. Ideally, I'd like to get us to the point where we're big enough that, like, hiring editors would be really cool, but we're just not there yet, so yeah. Anywho. Remember to like and subscribe and enjoy the video. Bye.
Hey everyone. So, real quick, as it is Transgender Awareness Week, I wanted to be aware of something pretty devastating. And so I'm going to say trigger warning for transphobia, violence, and transmisogyny. So let's get into it. Jen Psaki, if I remember correctly, the White House press secretary, calls the record amount of trans people murdered in 2021 so far devastating. So let's get into this.
White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki has condemned violence against trans and gender nonconforming people, which reached a reported level high this week. In response to the news that the Human Rights Campaign, HRC, has recorded at least 45 victims to anti-trans violence so far in 2021, the most the organization has tracked in 1 year, Psaki pledged she'll ask President Joe Biden and the White House's Domestic Policy Council what they will do to address the problem.
Okay, so I will say that I don't know a ton about Jen. I will say that I do appreciate some of the things she said on the podium. One such thing was someone asked about the transgender sports stuff, and she said, "Well, it is the prerogative of the administration that trans rights are human rights." Yeah, no, that's ready to bang. I have some critiques about this, but that's coming out saying that from the White House is pretty strong. I've made those critiques before. I think that's really great. However,
Washington Blade White House correspondent Chris Johnson asked Psaki about anti-trans violence at yesterday's White House press briefing, her first behind the podium since she recovered from a breakthrough case of coronavirus and quarantined. With the Transgender Day of Remembrance fast approaching, 2021 has the highest number of recorded deaths of transgender and non-binary people, totaling out at 45 this year, Johnson asked. The president brought attention to this issue as a candidate, but has he been briefed on it, in the White House? Psaki responded by saying she's not sure if President Biden has been briefed, but she will make sure it is brought to his attention. I'm happy to ask the president and see with our domestic policy team if they have briefed him on that, she said. Then, Psaki responded to the revelation herself, adding, "That's devastating, and that's terrible and heartbreaking to hear. It is a commitment of the president to address violence, address threats to transgender people and anyone who's facing those threats."
So this is pretty good stuff coming out of the White House. Now, I don't want to be accused of, sucking up to the Dems, because I'm not. But hearing this stuff is a really big deal. It means a lot to hear an administration do this. Now, does that mean it's actual material change? No. As much as it's really great to see somebody have a genuine emotional moment of that's like legitimately devastating, that's a big deal. I like that. How are you doing, Kisses?
I'm okay. I'm just migrating.
I know. I just know this topicality bugs you a lot.
Yeah.
Right?
She once again pledged that she will see if he has been briefed on that. Johnson then asked a follow-up question, inquiring what options are on the table for Biden to pursue on this issue. Psaki told Johnson that she would like to see if Biden had been briefed on the issue before offering any specific solutions in terms of reducing violence. She once again pledged to also talk to our domestic policy team and maybe get more information about their planned response.
Yeah. So, again, this is pretty solid. The fact that this question was asked and the fact that there was a very real response to it, yes, it's a not sure, not loving that.
Well, and I will say that, like, somebody in her position might not know everything that's going on, with other offices. So just being clear up front of, like, no, I actually need to talk with these people and I actually need to, like, get with them before I can tell you anything more. No, I would much rather have the truth and have that earnest, like, hey, this is legit the situation. I think that's a pretty good response, all things considered, right? That means that, hey, there's actually, some commitment, some acknowledgement, of the reality here. And again, not all of these offices are able to talk constantly, right? So it does take a second for those people, to actually get with each other.
No, absolutely. And again, he was just recently out of the country, so or he might still be as far as the whole climate summit. So I actually don't know on that one.
And she just got back from, being quarantined with COVID after a breakthrough case, which, by the way, that's totally possible. Keep wearing your masks, okay? Still do it.
Yeah, they're rare, but breakthrough cases do happen. Like, again, vaccines historically are not perfect. They are really great, and they do totally lower the level of deaths. But please, wear your damn mask. I don't care if you're vaccinated. I don't give a crap if you're a robot. Wear your mask.
Biden regularly spoke out against anti-trans violence while campaigning for president in 2020, and he directly blamed violence in previous years on the Trump administration in 2019. The fastest way to end it is to end the Trump administration, he said at a HRC event at the time. While the Biden-Harris administration has taken several steps towards fulfilling their pledge to have the most pro-equality administration in history, their efforts have been met by a record level of anti-trans legislation proposals, and a record amount of them have passed state legislatures.
Yeah, so not only has there been all of the anti-trans bills for trans kids, right? So Republicans, fascists, again, I repeat myself, are by definition always going to go after the weakest people. Trans people are always people that are exceedingly easy to go after, legally speaking. And to just notch it up because, again, suffering is the point, they go after kids. The fact of the matter is that this is them doing this in direct response. This is what happened with Obama in office. Do you remember how in the South there were all those, discussions about him not being American, when really what it was is he wasn't white. They were racist, and the idea of being overseen by a man of color is just too far. And, this has led to outcomes from there, and now we have this stuff where there's these stupid-ass laws. So, let's move on.
The White House Domestic Policy Council, led by Ambassador Susan Rice, has yet to publicly issue a response or acknowledgement. The record for murders and violent deaths as counted by HRC surpassing last calendar year's record was set this week with the death of Marquisha Lawrence. Lawrence, a 28-year-old black trans woman from South Carolina, is at least the 45th victim of anti-trans violence in 2021.
Rest in power.
Lawrence was also known as keen and quiet, and as a very humbled, free thinker who was loved by many. She was remembered by her trans mother Ebony Sinclair as a young trans woman, at the beginning of this game called life, as we know it in the trans community. Instead, she, like so many who have gone before her, fell victim to a senseless murder, Sinclair mourned.
Rest in power, Queen. Damn. And her own trans mom, man, it's like a family of trans, but that sucks. That sucks so hard. Please protect black trans women. Like, please, just buy them body armor, or men should have criminal background checks before they date black trans women, just to make sure they're not going to be assholes. Goddamn, I hate this so much.
Despite that and Lawrence identifying as a woman on her own social media, she was still reported as a man and dead named by the Office of Greenville County Coroner
Because of
Bobby
fucking
Park
course.
Evans, and subsequently in reports by local media publications. Marquia Shaw was clearly loved by so many. She deserved to live, but her life was stolen from us far too soon, Tori Cooper, the Director of Community Engagement for the HRC's Transgender Justice Initiative, said in a statement recognizing Lawrence's death.
Let's finish this up and then we have some critiques.
Each of these 45 names represents a whole person and a rich life torn from us by senseless violence, driven by bigotry and transphobia and stoked by people who hate and fear transgender people and the richness of their experience, HRC President Joni Madison said in another statement recognizing the record-setting amount of deaths. Madison points to the normalization of dehumanizing rhetoric and the unprecedented number of bills introduced in state legislatures attacking transgender youth and trans adults. HRC also determined this calendar year has had the most anti-trans legislation passed or proposed in recorded American history.
So, I see in chat people are talking about Cat Black's new video. I haven't seen it yet, but I'll be interested to take it. But this is related. Let's be very clear. Dave Chappelle pretended that black trans women don't exist. He called transness essentially a white person thing, and then made comments about our genitals. The simple fact is that this continued assertion by transphobes that we are not women or we are not the identities we say we are leads to these issues. I do not know the nature of this woman's death, but I'm going to guess that it probably was at the hands of men, and it was probably at the hands of people who utterly delegitimized her identity. This is the effects that Dave Chappelle's rhetoric had. And while I can't blame him directly, I can say that he did sort of add to that atmosphere. Yeah, and a lot of black people are wrong about that. That tinge of conservatism and by definition, like, Christo-fascism ain't cool. Right? So let's get into this. So what do I think about this? Zena, do you have anything you want to say about this before I jump into it? Other than it's horrifying?
I mean, yes, it's horrifying. Also, like, anti-trans rhetoric absolutely does lead to people being killed. Like, that's a thing. That's been happening for a long time, and it's not okay.
Well, like, remember that the CEO, I think it was the CEO of Netflix, said that, like, they didn't believe that Chappelle's speech would create violence? No, that's what this does. This is literally what this does.
Well, we've been dealing with this issue for a long time. You know, in fact, it's really rough because a lot of supposed positive, my ass, trans representation in movies for a long time were movies about trans people not being accepted, and then a lot of them would end with trans people being murdered at the end. And there would be this whole thing about it. And I really hated watching movies like that because, God, I don't think they help the situation. So yeah, no, this is where there is some weird connection that, like, you can deny somebody's gender and also you're denying their personhood, and therefore murder is okay to do to them. And no, all of those things are actually linked together, and as much as people don't want to believe it, that is how that whole thought works. That's that whole chain there is that.
No, absolutely. We talked about this ad nauseum, so I think it's really important to look into. But the simple fact of this is that, like, there's no coincidence that this is the first year of the Biden administration, an administration that claimed that it would be much more, like, inclusive to trans people. And there's not a whole lot of coincidence at the fact that Republicans have started putting forth these laws, which means trans people are more in the spotlight. A lot of nonsense and a lot of TERF ideology got spread around. Conservatives love jumping on that because TERFs are conservatives. Right? The idea that we're mutilating kids, we're doing all these things, when in reality, what it is that this is with real gender-affirming therapy, is totally legit and cool. And again, we've talked about all that stuff before, but there's a reason why all this stuff is kind of happening. And the fact that this number of deaths happened this year, yeah, it's pretty awful.
No, I have a really hard time with Transgender Day of Remembrance because maybe there's a few years where the numbers decreased, but most years I remember that the death toll being higher and higher every year. And I think that's one of the really, really hard things to think about is because, like, no, these, even before I was out, you know, I had to figure out my stuff, like, these were still my friends. These were still my people. These were still, you know, people I went to school with and cared about, right? And this is the reality around them. There's a reason that, like, sometimes a lot of them carry around, a lot of the trans friends I had carry around a lot of anger. And there's a reason for that, and it is that, right? Like, this is the reality that's around them.
Well, this is always the problem with more representation, right? There was a piece written by, I forget the person's name off the top of my head, but there was a trans reporter who wrote an article talking about the bittersweetness of representation. On the one hand, you see more people coming out and being really supportive and being really great about this, but you also see more pushback because it's no longer trans women dying in the alleys and you know, in, you know, courtroom drama shows. Instead, it's being out there and, you know, this is an actual real thing, which means, yes, you get more allies, but you also get more enemies. And that's just a sad fact. I think the reason why I wanted to bring this thing up especially is because the Biden administration has done some good. The fact that all the protections that the Obama administration put in have been returned is huge. We've gone through this. I'm not going to bring up the article again, but you know the amount of damage the Trump administration did to LGBT people. If you don't know that, look at the article in our links. There is a Google Doc below that has a ton of things, but that one's gotten posted at least once in there. There are hundreds of things that he did that were awful, removing and making us invisible and attacking trans women at every level of government. Yeah, in the UK, violence has gone up 36% in the last year. Yeah, because Trump's making a bigger issue and keeps spreading around hate speech. They're coming for your children. They're going to mutilate your kids. They're going after our daughters. Like, this is the same thing every other bigot says. And the fact that they can't recognize it or won't admit to it is either just intellectual dishonesty or just shows how utterly insane their hatred is. Yeah, Glinner can go fuck himself. We need to stop paying attention to that troll of a man. I don't normally go after people's looks, but if he could get his, you know, if he could get his story straight, let alone his eyes, that would be really great. I'm sorry, like, Quasimodo from Disney's Hunchback of Notre Dame is cuter. I'm just saying, he's a weird-looking bloke who essentially has no reason to be talking on these issues, and the only reason he's been embraced by TERFs is incredibly so transphobic to basically be embraced by them. This is no different than Lily Kate. No joke. That's a thing. So coming back to this, the Biden administration has done some good. They've also fell short in places, and I think we need to talk about this. The fact is that the Equality Act was not passed. Part of this is because, very real reasons, there are some shitty Dems in office, namely Zena and the other guy whose name is escaping me right now. Mostly because I just think he looks weird. But not to mention that, but because we have Republicans in office who are... Oh, Joe Manchin, thank you. But not to mention that we have Republicans in office who are just out-and-out transphobes and monsters. I'm looking at you, Ted Cruz. A man so stupid that he got in a fight with a puppet recently. Like literally, to get dunked on by Big Bird is to hit a new low. And this is a guy that posted porn to his I believe it was his senator account. So, you know, whatever. Well, yeah, he's no longer, the BBC won't, they're like, television shows won't work with Glinner anymore. His wife left him. Like, no. Him being a monster, indirectly Tiamat, essentially, there were a lot of people who are faking screenshots or, there was a really funny thing on Colbert of them calling him lots of names.
No, I think the Big Bird account did kind of go like,
I have heard those tweets were fake.
I don't know. We'll find out. I guess somebody look it up. It's fun either way.
I know. It's good stuff. And again, this is the cultural of nonsense Republicans go after. They love the idea that, oh, look, they're canceling, they're trying to indoctrinate the kids for vaccines. Again, this is all distraction. It always is distraction. It always is. Except in this case, going after, trans people is a distraction that they also get to inflict cruelty with, their favorite thing. As I was saying, though, the Biden administration hasn't done enough. The fact that the Equality Act hasn't been passed, the fact that these anti-trans bills haven't been pushed back enough by the Department of Justice. I've heard very little on this. This needs to stop. There needs to be more willingness to do something about this. And I think it's something that needs to be discussed. And honestly, I
need more politicians to call out their, coworkers, their other politicians that they work with as monsters. I'm going to be honest. When you have the Republican Party doing as much damage everywhere as they are doing and absolutely hurting people constantly, no, you need to start fucking calling out people.
No, Dems do have to show a backbone. If the Dems actually pointed out the actual real harm that was being done by these people, I think they could actually start pushing back. But because they're so spineless and don't want to actually deal with the problem, we're not getting this. One of the things I actually was impressed by with Biden is when he got the nomination, he actually was speaking about trans people. This is something we barely heard from Obama, and under Trump was just horrific.
Well, and God damn it, I hate the state of our government right now. I do.
So we could go on with this 100 times over, but I'll basically say this. Biden needs to do better. I appreciate hearing this stuff. It does bring hope to my heart, but we need better. Simple as that.
Also, you can absolutely email and phone call your various representatives and the federal government. Please do. It's very easy to look up on the internet, who your representatives are, how to get in contact with them. Actually sending emails and phone calls really does make a difference because you are now one more voice that they absolutely have to take into account. So making those phone calls being like, no, you need to support this. The fact that you're not as stupid, or, hey, I'm glad you're supporting this. Keep doing it. This is needed, right? Whatever may be the case. Those messages absolutely matter. Okay, when you blow up somebody's phone that much, no, it matters.
I'm also going to say, Jocelyn, I disagree. You said lip service is useless. I'm going to say I disagree on that. I think vocal support has a place and a use in some ways. I think it gives us more optic advantage that we're being legitimized. Even just for the president of the United States to come out and say that he supports trans people is leagues better than 15 years ago where we didn't exist. So I really dislike this lefty thing of, well, that's just respectability politics and lip service. No, those things have meaning and use. There were a lot of trans people who felt incredibly validated to see high-ranking officials say this stuff. It is insufficient. Yes, I would agree with that. But it falls very similar to the argument I've seen from some queer people saying, well, getting marriage equality didn't matter because we're just getting the same thing as straight people. And it is, for those of us who never wanted to get married, this is a meaningless thing. When so many people found that meaningful and important, I just find this whole, it's got to be perfect or it's not sufficient is really weird to me. Maybe that's my own shit.
No, I'm very much on that side where even this stuff is still a shift in the narrative. It is still pushing the narrative closer and closer to where we want it to be. The more we talk about this, that there needs to be more stuff, the better. The more of these articles that actually put this in people's faces as an issue we have to worry about, the better. And this person going, no, I actually need to make sure that these people are talking about it. That's actually kind of a big deal. This is somebody who's got the ability to connect a couple different government government offices to be like, no, really, we got to actually deal with this. I got to actually, show up and tell people, what we're doing. That's my job, is to tell people what we're doing, okay? You need to get me an answer, right? We want that to happen.
True.
So as much as we want more to happen, this kind of stuff is still, a positive thing that's going to help us out.
True. All right, get me out of this segment. I love you guys. We'll talk to you next time. Bye.
If you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. Also, consider donating to us. You can support us on our website, transgirltherapist.org. You can also help us on our Patreon, link below, or you can become a member here on YouTube. Thank you so much for watching.